Every human being eventually gets tested, not by success, not by money, not by status, but by disappointment, because disappointment reveals who is in control, you or your emotions. In this video, we are decoding 6 behaviors that emotionally strong people use when life doesn't go their way. Let's get into it. The first thing emotionally strong people do differently is this. They are ruthlessly selective about who they open up to, and most people get this completely wrong. There's a popular idea that vulnerability is always good, that you should open up, that sharing your pain is healthy and hiding it is toxic. And there's truth in that, but only partial truth, because the part nobody talks about is who you're opening up to. Here's what actually happens when you share your pain with the wrong person. They don't understand it. They minimize it. They compare it to their own experiences. They offer advice you didn't ask for. They tell someone else. Or worst of all, they look at you differently after. Not with more respect, with less. And now you don't just have the original wound. You have the wound plus the feeling of having been dismissed. The wound plus the betrayal. The wound plus the regret of having shown your hand to someone who didn't deserve to see it. Emotionally strong people understand this. They don't talk about their pain publicly as it's happening. They don't post vague status updates fishing for concern. They don't sit across from people who have a track record of making them feel worse and expect a different result this time. They grieve internally. They process it, alone, or with the very small number of people who have actually earned access to that part of them. And then they move. This isn't suppression. Let me be clear about that. Suppression is when you pretend nothing happened, when you bury it and act normal, and let it rot inside you until it surfaces as something worse later. That's not what this is. This is selection. It's the understanding that your pain deserves to be seen by someone who is actually capable of holding it. Not everyone is. Most people aren't. That's not a judgment. It's just reality. The emotionally weak person shares indiscriminately. They'll tell the wrong person everything, not because it helps them, but because the act of telling feels like relief. It's a release valve, and in the short term it works. You feel lighter for about 10 minutes, but then you have to deal with having handed someone information they'll use poorly. Emotionally strong people are willing to sit with the discomfort of keeping things internal until they find the right container for it. That patience, that discipline to not bleed on everyone, is one of the clearest markers of emotional maturity I've ever observed. Silence about your pain isn't weakness. In the wrong company, it's the only intelligent choice. The second behavior. Emotionally strong people know how to let go without making it a performance. Most people can't do this. When a relationship starts dying, friendship, romantic, professional, the emotionally weak response is to cling, to force conversations, to manufacture conflict as a way of maintaining connection. Because conflict is at least something. At least in an argument, the other person is still engaged. At least in the confrontation, they still have to look at you. Some people would rather be hated than ignored. Think about that. Emotionally strong people don't operate this way. When they recognize that a relationship has run its course, when the investment is no longer mutual, when the dynamic has become extractive, when the connection has died but the routine of it hasn't, they release it quietly, without drama, without the big confrontation or the long explanation. Not because they don't care, because they understand something that most people refuse to accept. Some endings don't have reasons. Some people just drift. Some connections were built for a season and that season is over. And no amount of conversation, confrontation, or forcing is going to make a dead thing alive again. The need to have a final scene, to explain everything, to get closure, to make the other person understand exactly what they're losing. That's not strength. That's the ego refusing to accept that something is over without its permission. Emotionally strong people can close chapters without needing the last word. They can walk away without needing to be understood. They can let someone think whatever they want about them because their sense of self isn't dependent on the other person's perception. That is rare, genuinely rare, because most people's self-esteem is tied up in how they're seen. They need the person they're leaving or being left by to know they're good, to know they tried, to know it wasn't their fault. And sometimes that's legitimate, but a lot of the time it's just attachment masquerading as closure. If you've ever dragged out an ending far longer than it needed to go, if you've ever had the same conversation 6 times hoping it would land differently, you know what I'm describing. And you probably also know, somewhere underneath it, that you already knew how it was going to end the first time. Emotionally strong people trust what they already know. Not every ending needs a eulogy. Quick warning. If you're watching Dark Whisper videos but you're not using the actual systems, you're only getting a fraction of the value. That's why I created the Whisper Power Bundle. It contains every ebook, every audiobook, and gives you lifetime access to all future releases. Every time a new ebook or audiobook is released, it gets added to your account automatically. No monthly fees, no repurchasing content. If you're serious about upgrading your thinking and want the complete library, the link is in the description. Now let's continue. Third behavior, and this one is one of the most underrated markers of emotional strength there is, the ability to sit inside uncertainty without collapsing. Most people cannot tolerate open loops. When something is unresolved, when they don't know what's going to happen with a relationship, a job, a decision, a diagnosis, they spiral. The mind starts running worst-case scenarios on repeat. The anxiety builds, and eventually it gets so uncomfortable that they do something just to feel like they have control again. And that something, that impulsive move made to escape the discomfort of not knowing, is almost always the wrong decision. Think about how many bad choices you've watched people make. How many you've made yourself, specifically because the uncertainty was unbearable. You took the wrong job because the waiting was killing you. You said yes to the wrong relationship because being alone felt worse than being in something broken. You had the conversation too early, from a place of anxiety rather than clarity, and it blew up in your face. Uncertainty didn't make those choices. The inability to tolerate uncertainty did. Emotionally strong people have trained something that most people haven't. They've learned to hold ambiguity without forcing resolution. They can say, "I don't know what's going to happen here," and keep functioning. They can stay in the waiting room, psychologically, without tearing the place apart. This doesn't mean they're passive. It doesn't mean they don't take action. It means they wait for actual information before acting, rather than acting from anxiety just to make the discomfort stop. There's a phrase I want you to remember. Chasing certainty when none exists is how you make your worst decisions. Read that again if you need to. Because the compulsion to know, to resolve, to conclude, to get an answer now, bypasses every other form of intelligence you have. And emotionally strong people have learned to recognize that compulsion and not obey it automatically. They sit with the open loop. And in that space, in the patience, they usually get better information than they would have gotten by forcing things. The fourth behavior is something that's become almost impossible to talk about without being misunderstood. But it needs to be said. Emotionally strong people heal privately. We live in a culture that has turned recovery into content. The breakdown post, the "I've been going through a lot" caption, the carefully worded emotional vulnerability drop designed to pull comments from strangers. The transformation arc, "Here's who I was, here's what happened to me, here's who I'm becoming," packaged and published while it's still happening. None of that is healing. That's performing healing. And there's a significant difference. Performing healing is when the sharing is part of the processing, or worse, when the sharing is the processing. When you can't sit alone with the pain, so you outsource it to an audience. When the comments and the support and the "I see you" responses are doing the emotional work that you should be doing internally. And I'm not judging it. I understand why it happens. It feels like connection. It feels like support. And to some degree it is. But there's a version of this that becomes a trap, where you're constantly performing your wounds because the performance gets more response than your silence ever did. And then the healing itself gets arrested, because to stop performing it, to actually finish it, means losing the attention. Emotionally strong people don't use their pain as content while it's happening. They process. They sit in it. They get through the dark part without an audience. And when they're back, when they're genuinely operating again, they just show up. No announcement, no reveal, no "I'm back and here's what I learned." They're just back. There's something almost unsettling about watching someone emerge from a difficult period without making it a moment, because we've been conditioned to expect the story. But real emotional strength doesn't need a narrative wrapped around it. The evidence is in the behavior, not the statement. If you've been performing your healing, this isn't an attack. It's a mirror. Real recovery doesn't need an audience. It just needs time, honesty, and the willingness to sit in the hard part without making it a show. Fifth thing emotionally strong people do differently, and this is one that almost no one talks about correctly, they know how to take accountability without turning it into self-destruction. When most people fail, when they make a mistake, hurt someone, drop the ball, act out of character, there are two dominant responses. Both are weak. The first is avoidance. Deflect, minimize, rationalize, blame external factors. It wasn't really my fault. The circumstances were impossible. Anyone would have done the same thing. This is the response of someone who cannot tolerate being wrong, so they rebuild reality around their innocence. The second is collapse. Full spiral into shame. I'm a terrible person. I always do this. I don't deserve forgiveness. This looks like accountability. It sounds humble even, but it isn't. It's ego in a different costume, because the collapse is still about the self. It's still narcissistic. The person isn't actually focused on the harm they caused or how to correct it. They're consumed by how the mistake makes them feel about themselves. Emotionally strong people do something different. They take the hit clean. They look at what happened without flinching from it. They acknowledge it, specifically, not generally. Not, I haven't been great lately, but I did this specific thing and it caused this specific harm. They understand why it happened, not as an excuse but as data. And then they stop. They don't carry it forward as a badge of self-punishment. They don't bring it up repeatedly to prove how seriously they take it. They correct what can be corrected, accept what can't be undone, and then they move. That's it. That's the whole process. It sounds simple. It isn't, because the clean version of accountability requires a level of self-security that most people don't have. It requires being able to look directly at your own failure without either defending yourself from it or being destroyed by it. That takes a very stable internal foundation, a real sense of self that can absorb the information that you were wrong without collapsing the entire structure around it. You can own your errors without becoming them. The mistake happened. You are not the mistake. Both of those things are true, and emotionally strong people can hold both at the same time. The sixth behavior, and in some ways, this is the one that costs people the most when they don't have it. Emotionally strong people treat their energy, their attention, their emotional bandwidth, their time, as finite capital, not as something they give away to prove how good they are. Most people operate with a hidden belief that generosity with their energy is a virtue, that being available, being helpful, being there for everyone who asks, that this is what makes them a good person. And so they give, they over-explain, they over-help, they over-accommodate. They sit with energy-draining people longer than makes sense. They answer messages that deserve to go unanswered. They maintain relationships that are taking far more than they're giving because ending them feels selfish, and they exhaust themselves. And then they have nothing left for the things and people that actually matter. Here's what's actually happening in most cases. The overgiving isn't purely selfless. It's a protection mechanism. If I'm endlessly helpful and available, people will see me as good. If I say no, they'll think I'm cold. If I stop explaining myself, they'll misunderstand me. And I can't have that. I need to be seen correctly. That's not generosity. That's anxiety wearing the costume of generosity. Emotionally strong people have made peace with being misunderstood. They've accepted that they cannot manage everyone's perception of them, and that trying to is a waste of resources. They let people have the wrong opinion of them. They let the conversation end without the final word. They say no without the 3-paragraph explanation softening it. They decide where their energy goes based on actual value, what feeds them, what builds something, what they genuinely want to give, not based on who will be offended if they don't give it. This is protection without coldness. It's clarity without cruelty. The emotionally strong person isn't guarded because they're damaged. They're selective because they're self-aware. Your energy is a resource, Every hour you spend managing someone else's feelings about you is an hour you're not spending on something that actually moves your life forward. Emotionally strong people understand that, and they protect accordingly. 6 behaviors, not theories, not concepts, operational patterns. They don't explain their pain to the wrong people. They let relationships die without drama. They tolerate uncertainty without forcing resolution. They heal privately. They own their mistakes without collapsing into them. And they protect their energy like the finite resource it is. Notice what's absent from that list. There's no mention of feeling good all the time. No mention of not being affected by things. No mention of confidence or motivation or any of the other words that get pasted onto this topic to make it sound manageable. Because emotional strength isn't about managing feelings. It's about managing behavior. What you do when the feelings come, how you navigate the hit, where you put your resources when the situation is unclear. The emotionally weak person is always reacting. Something happens, and they respond immediately, from pain, from fear, from the need to be understood, from the desperation to resolve the discomfort as fast as possible. The emotionally strong person has already decided, not what will happen, they can't control that, but how they'll operate when it does, what they'll expose and what they'll keep, who gets access and who doesn't, when to hold and when to release. That's the difference, and it's a learnable difference. These aren't traits you're born with. They're patterns, and patterns can be built. Go operate.